Hey guys, welcome back. It's Faraz here with the next video in the Minecraft series. Last time we left off, we basically just had the basic setup going. We had the Minecraft Forge like instance launcher of Minecraft running, and today we want to actually go and name our actual mod. You'll see that by default it was called example mod with some descriptions. So we want to go and name our mod, as well as create our first actual item in the mod. Cool. So before we actually start, please be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you like the content and like to see more, and thanks, and I appreciate that. Cool. So let's close the application, and we are currently in this example mod.java file. So there's two files. It's kind of important. This is this example mod, and if I go into my resources, and this is this mod.toml file. So we actually want to edit the mods.tml file first, and we want to basically call our mod a certain name. The main kind of identification is this mod ID, right? And this is now where we can start naming our specific mod. When you install multiple mods out there, the mod ID is what kind of separates it. It's your unique naming convention that separates it. So what we're actually going to call is, we're going to call this my first mod, and let's go down the rest of this file. It's called example mod. I'm going to call this again my first mod. There's some URLs which are all kind of optional, logo file optional. There's some credits. Thanks for this, so we can say thanks for this tutorial mod goes to my family. Authors is fine, so let's change it. So this is where you'd put your name over there. So that's myself. And this is that description that we saw for the mod when we saw it in the launcher itself. So I'm gonna put the description there is, this is our first ever mod that we're creating. Thanks and have fun. Cool, that's all fine. You'll see that there's also the same kind of name convention your example mod. You want to change this as well to your mod ID, which we've called my first mod. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to replace this example mod over here. So set the replace button, and you can see it all now references to my first mod. You'll see that the version is 1.16.1. That is basically it for this file. It's all good. The next thing that we want to do is we actually want to create our actual mod. So I'm going to leave this example mod over here just as an identification. We're going to create our own folder over here called and create a new package, com.faraz, and we're going to call it my first mod, and this can be whatever name that you'd want. You'd normally follow like a naming structure of your name or something that you want to basically call yourself, or call whatever it is that's identifying yourself, and then this will be like the base package structure. Cool. So I'm going to create that, and I'm going to basically copy this file across, and I'm going to rename it to my first mod. Yeah, that's quite cool. So this is going to be basically my main class, and you'll notice over here there's an @mod and example mod. This as well over here is your mod ID, which we called my first mod. So this is your mod ID. This package structure over here isn't a mod ID. It doesn't need to be that. That's fine. What else is in here? This is basically just a couple of boilerplate. We aren't gonna touch any of this yet. We will get into it. That's basically it from since we're changing. We need to also come into the build.gradle itself. So in this file we should also see example mod. So you can see I'm searching for the example mod, and this again is your mod ID. So you want to replace all of this with my mod ID, which is my first mod. So I'm going to click this one by one, hit that replace. Okay, that's the vendor, that's fine. What else is in here? Cool. So every like occurrence of example mod, you want to replace it with whatever your mod ID was, right? That's kind of how it all activates. So now I'm going to delete this example structure. Cool. The only thing that you remain with is my first mod, and we've named everything that we needed to name. So let's just refresh the gradable changes, and we actually want to run this on our client to just make sure that, you know, it picks up our new name and everything's still fine as is. Cool. So now that the Forge instance is started up, if we go into mods, we'll see that the name is now changed to my first mod, and you see that there's my credits, goes out to my family, I'm the author, there's no homepage yet, and there's our description over there. One thing that we're missing is a version, which should also be in this file as well. You can see over here there's like a version, and that's eventually going to be set in the builder cradle. Cool. So yeah, there's the version over there. So that will kind of all figure itself out when you actually build the project itself. So you don't have to worry about that for now. So cool. We want to create an item. Cool. So what we want to do now is we want to create our first actual item. And what we're going to need is we're going to need a PNG. JPEGs and all the other formats aren't supported. We need a PNG, and ideally we need a 16 by 16 PNG. So I want to go and create a coin, and I'm going to look for a coin from Google. Yeah, so I found the coin that I want to use. It's a nice square. It's like perfect for the format, so I don't have to go and like really mess with it too much. I'm going to save this image. It is in a PNG format, which is perfect. If it's not in PNG format, there are tools that can convert it. You just have to type in like JPEG to PNG, and there's like all these tools. I like this tool at the top of here, which will convert your JPEG for you into a PNG format. Cool. So I've got this image. The background looks transparent. That looks cool. If it isn't transparent, then we need to again find another tool that's going to basically make the background transparent for us. Lunapic is like a nice kind of tool that will do that for us. But I think that this image is fine. So I'm just going to close all of that. The next thing we need to do is we need to resize the image, because we want a 16 by 16 format. So I'm going to say PNG resizer. And cool, here's another tool over here, and let me go and upload this PNG. So I should be able to drag and drop it. Let's see, nope, not drag and drop. Let's try to bring that back up. Let me import the file, downloads, add a PNG. Okay, and you can see there's the resized one. What I want is a 16 by 16. You can see it's like super small. So let's save that, save as, and I'm going to download that, and that's perfect. Cool. So there's my 16 by 16 PNG. Cool. It looks super tiny, but that's basically what we need. I'm going to leave this coin as is. We may need it in future in case the transparency is anything weird like that, but cool. So that's fine. I'm going to recall this coin for the moment. Now what we need to do is come back to IntelliJ. Okay, and we want to go to my first.mod, and now what we want to do is set up something called a deferred registry or register. And what we're doing is we're calling it public static final deferred register. It's going to be of type item, and you can see it's importing from net Minecraft item. I'm going to call that items, and that's going to equal the deferred register dot create, and this is going to be a forge registries of type items, and it's going to be referring to a mod ID. It's asking for mod ID. I'm going to call this mod ID at the moment, and let me go and define that constant. So call it public static final mod ID, and remember this has to equal the mod ID that you specified over here, and this has to be of type string. Okay, and let me put that over there. So that's my register, and then the next thing we want to define is the actual like item itself. All right, that we need to register. So this is now going to be a registry object, and it's going to be of type item, and this is now going to be my item coin, for example, and I'm going to register it against the item registry, and you can see it's taking this is the format it's expecting. It now wants basically a naming structure. I'm going to call it coin, and it also wants basically a supplier. It wants a type of class. We're going to basically define it as a new item with set of properties, and that properties is going to have a certain item group, and we want it to be under MISC. So there's a lot going on over here. So I'm taking basically the items like registry for my deferred register. I'm defining a new item against it with name coin, right? And this is creating a supplier reference to an item class. The item class takes in a set of properties. From the properties, I'm just defining it under MISC. This group attribute over here returns another properties, so it's just basically like a chain. So that's just creating this new item kind of object, and it's sitting, it basically goes under this like supplier, this like Java 8 like kind of construct. Cool. And the next thing that we actually need to do is we need to basically now connect that items registry and kind of like push it against the actual like event bus. So what I'm going to do is we're going to say items, and we're going to say register, and we're going to register event bus against that. So that's fml java, it's the context, and we're going to get the context, and we're going to get the mod event bus. So that's just some like, again, some boilerplate that you need to do. That is kind of it from a coding point of view. Next thing you need to do is actually create the asset itself. So what you need to do is underneath the resources folder, you want to go in and create a folder called assets. Okay, and then under assets you want to create the folder that's named exactly the same name as your mod ID. So you can see over there my mod ID is my first mod. So I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to call it my first mod. Underneath this, I'm going to create a directory called, I'm going to create 3 directories, so a couple of directories. The first one called lang. The next one I'm going to create called models. The next one I want to create, it's called textures. And to kind of get IntelliJ to kind of split out into this view, there's a setting that says wait, now again, it's basically like the inverse of this, compact middle packages. You can see that's kind of the default view. If you say if you untick that, it shows you all like the actual packages itself. Cool. The next thing we'll need is under models, another new folder over here, and this one over here is going to be called item, and the same for the textures folder. It's going to be called item. You need to note the plural like use, so it's item models textures. Underneath lang, you're going to be getting a new file called en_us.json, right? And basically this file is what's going to decide how the item itself actually gets displayed in game. So what we're going to do is this JSON file, we're going to use some braces, and we're going to define a key value pair. We're going to say item dot whatever my mod ID was, so it's my first mod, and then the name that I used. So I'm going to call this coin. This name, this coin over here, it relates to the same coin that's being used over here, that same naming convention, the same name exactly. So that's what does the matching. And then we use a colon, and now this is the name that I actually wanted to display in the game. So I also wanted to say coin in the game itself. Cool. So that's everything in my my lang folder. What we also want to do is under models, we need to define, to get the item to show, we need both the language, we need the language entity that describes it, we need the model that it represents, and we need the texture that sits on top of the model. So underneath item, we're going to create another file called coin.json. Okay, and where we're kind of getting like all this information from, if I kind of just go to it, is let's go back to Forge. It's under this documentation over here. So that's where I'm getting like a lot of this information from. So if you do get lost, you should come back here and choose 1.15x. There isn't the 1.16 document available, but some of this has been updated to 1.16, and you're going to be going through like, you know, some of the information over here under, you know, items. This is like a reference to like a wiki and stuff. So it's kind of all over the place, but this documentation is what I kind of refer to. Okay, so we're gonna have a coin.json. So what you're gonna have is you're gonna have something called a parent. Okay, you want it to be set with an item generated, comma. Now you want to define the textures. Cool, and now you want on layer 0, you want basically to define again the name of your mod ID. So that's my first mod, colon item slash coin. So this coin over here is exactly the same name, and that's kind of it. The next thing we need another JSON file under textures, and I can't explain how this all kind of like how this all kind of fits in. So another JSON file, we need the actual PNG. So in the previous like steps, we created that coin, and this is now where it gets included in the texture folder. Cool. So now I kind of want to explain a little bit how the kind of these files will relate to each other. So the image is almost the image. This coin JSON over here, what this textures does is it basically annotates it to look for that coin texture. It says this is the mod I want to search for, which is this folder over here, and it's going to look for whatever is relevant for this naming structure. So I'm looking for item coin, it's looking for a texture, so it knows to go under the textures format. So there's item, there's coin. The same with this this english.us. Item is like the construct. My first mod is the mod ID, and this is just the name that I defined in the code itself. Cool, so that should basically be it. So now I should be able to run, and let's see what actually happens. Cool, so I started up the Minecraft launcher again. Remember, using that my first mod run client. Let's go into the single player. I'm now actually going to go and create a world. So I'm going to create a creative world, and let's go and create that. Cool, so here's my character. If I now go back into the inventory and I go under search items and I scroll to the bottom, you can see there's my coin that I've created, right? And you can see that it is kind of like transparent background. There's my image, and at the moment I can't do anything with this at the moment. I can just kind of like, you know, chuck it. You can kind of see it. But yeah, that's basically the first step. That's how we have a basic item in the game. Cool, that's kind of it for this video. Yeah, hopefully you got it all working on your side. I will leave a link to this code to the repo in the description, so you can, if you kind of got confused along the way, you can always refer to the link. Yeah, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one, where we hopefully going to be creating a basic block. Cool, thanks so much, guys.